What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Priscilla and this is Kim Dave, the one place where you get a front row seat on everything DIY, fashion and bits and pieces of my life since fashion school. In this video I made this cute blazer dress using Ankara fabric. This was actually one of the fabrics that I got in my last fabric haul where I did testing as well. I'll leave a link somewhere on the screen so you go check that out. But in all, it was fairly simple, really straightforward, and the pattern is actually not that complicated. I'm going to link a similar pattern down below, but if you guys would like me to do the tutorial, please let me know and I will try as much as possible to get it to you. But without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, suggestions or ideas, please ask them. But enough, let's get into this tutorial, shall we? For those of you that don't know, I have a sewing class. It is my first ever Sewing with Kim class and it is in collaboration with Little Hands Design. It is going to be on the 10th of December and we'll be making a dress. The beautiful thing about this is the dress design is quite simple and you can customize it to your taste. You don't need to bring any sewing machines because the venue has machines and anything you would really need to make a dress come to life. So tickets are already on sale. I have left a link down below so you could check it out as well. Early bird ticket will be ending on the 23rd of November, but I've also included a talk which is going to be about body confidence, and I'm having these two beautiful girls come to speak, Queen Teshna and Jennifer Anmani. I can't wait for you guys to meet them. I am so excited for this event and I hope you guys would partake in it as well. Now let's get back to the tutorial. You will need a front and a back dress pattern as you can see here, but the difference is the front I have extended it by 12 centimeters to create that, you know, wrap over effect that you saw earlier on. And because you have one piece of pattern for the front, once you just cut two pieces, you have one for each side of the front. The back we're going to cut in a fold, and I have included darts in the back and the front as well to really create that sort of fitted silhouette. The next pattern you'll need is a shawl collar pattern. I would link a tutorial for this down below. It's not that complicated to create, and we're going to need two pieces of this shawl collar cut on a fold. So once you attach it to the dress, you just have one piece of sort of material wrapped around your neck. We'll also need facings for the front and the back. As you can see, the front is essentially just almost the same thing as the front pattern of the dress, but I just made it a bit slimmer because it doesn't need to go all the way to the side seam. We're going to need two pieces for the front facing. As for the back, I have traced around the back neckline and the shoulder as well, just making sure that shoulder matches up with the front, and we're going to need one piece cut on the fold. This is a basic sleeve which we're going to be working with, and we'll need two. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin this down the way I want. I really didn't pay much attention to the direction of the design of the prints because it looks fairly the same across the fabric, and I'm just going ahead to cut out all the pieces I need, making sure I get as close to the edge of the pattern so I don't create any excess bits that I don't require. So these are all the pieces I have cut myself out. We have cut two pieces for the front because you want that sort of wraparound effect, and I've cut facings that would match with the front as well. I have cut myself one back piece because I don't want a seam in the back, and to go with that we have sleeves, and I've cut two of them. The next thing that I also cut was the facing, which goes with the back, and this is the facing that will be attached to the front facing to help to place the collar, which I have cut right here. Now it is time to sew. The first thing that we're going to be doing is to join the shoulder seams of the front pieces to the back, so we sort of know what side is the wrong and the right side when it's time to create the darts. So using a normal straight stitch, I'm just going to quickly stitch that together, sewing both shoulders of the dress. So to mark the darts, I am going to take the front pattern and place it on the wrong side of the dress and mark the points where the dart starts, where it ends, and as long as the dart point on the waistline, because you want to get exactly the same point. And using a tailor's chalk, I'm just going to mark those holes that I have made with a pin. So piercing through the pattern into the fabric, you're going to make like holes and then mark those holes with a tailor's chalk. And when you've made all the holes that you need, all you need to do is connect those marked points using a set square, and once you pin those lines together and take it to your machine to sew, you have your dart ready. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw out those lines and pin them all together. So this is what it looks like right now. I'm going to go ahead and work on the back as well, just following the same steps. Punch out those holes, mark with a tailor's chalk, and connect those dots. So once you have it all nicely pinned and you take it to the machine, it's quite straightforward when it's time to sew. As you can see here, I've pinned down all of the darts for the front and the back as well, and using pins just to hold down these lines together makes it easier to sew when it's time to stitch the darts together on the dress. So I'm going to take this onto my machine and sew, and the best way to do this is sort of taper out as you get to the end of the darts. You want to make sure you sew into nothing, so when you press the darts open, it just sort of opens up nice and neat and there's no puckering at the ends. So this is what the garment looks like right now. I've sewn on the darts for the front and the back pieces as well, and I've just roughly pinned together the side seams just to make it look presentable on the mannequin. So as you can see, I've done the darts for the front and the back, and the next thing I'm going to be doing is to stitch together the side seams of the dress. After sewing it together in the machine, I am going to go ahead and overlock those seams so it doesn't unravel while I have the dress on. So using a normal straight stitch, I'm going to sew on a 1 centimeter seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and sew both side seams of the dress, and once I'm done sewing that, I'm going to overlock it as well. The next thing we're going to be working on is the facing. I have pinned together the shoulder seams of the front to the back facing, so we create one piece when we've joined those shoulders together. So using a normal straight stitch, I'm going to sew those shoulder seams, making sure they just say nice and happy, married forever, and when it's time to attach the collar, it's one piece that we're working with. So once I'm done sewing that on my domestic machine, I'm just going to go ahead and overlock the shoulder seams as well as the outer side of the facing, not the side that you're going to join to the front of the jacket, but the outer side that you would be tucked into the garment. So this is what it looks like right now. It's one piece, it's nicely done, it's neat, and it will just be easy to work with when it's time to join it to the rest of the garment. So the next thing that we're going to be working on is to fix the collar into the front of the dress, and this is the shawl collar pieces. I cut myself 2 pieces because I didn't want any raw edges around this curved end, and we're going to sew those 2 pieces together around this bit right here, all the way from one end to the other on my domestic machine. So using a normal straight stitch, I just sewed this together, and then I turned it inside out and I pressed it nice and flat so it looks really nice and neat when it's time to fix it into the dress. So what we're going to do is to sandwich the collar in between the facing and the actual dress. That is why the facing is very important, because if you just sew the collar to the dress like that, when you fold it in, you're going to see the raw seam that the collar has. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin right sides together of the facing onto the dress, joining hem to hem, shoulder seam to shoulder seam, and center front to center front. So when it's time to put in the collar, everything is kind of in their right places. So this is my collar piece, nicely done and neat, and I'm going to take one end and plant it right at that corner that the front has. So I'm going to carefully place it right here, placing the wrong side, the side that wasn't sewn, and pin together the front facing to one side of the front dress, sandwiching the collar in between. So once you sew from one side to the other, you automatically trap the collar in the front of the dress. So this is what it looks like, all pinned together. I think pins are like every seamstress's best friend, because once you just use those pins to hold points that you want to sew, all you need to do is just take it to your machine and stitch it together. So as you can see, the collar is trapped in between the facing and the dress. You have the option of fusing your facing before going ahead to work with it, but I had no fusing left, so I just went ahead and worked with the material like that. So using a normal straight stitch, I am going to sew on a 1 centimeter seam allowance using like one continuous stitch from one side to the other. So when you get to like this corner right here, all you have to do is turn and continue sewing till you get to the other side of the dress. So this is what the garment looks like right now, freshly sewn and straight from the machine. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to ease those seams. So what I mean by easing is I'm going to cut little snips on the seam. Don't cut the thread though, just cut like this seam allowance here. So when you turn it inside out, it helps the seams to relax easier. So I'm just quickly going to turn this inside out, revealing the shawl collar and tucking the facing into the dress. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good press so everything is nice and flat. So once you fold that collar in, this is what it's going to look like. And because you extended the center front, it wraps around in this very beautiful like smoking pattern that is very flattering on a lot of body shapes of women. So this is what the front looks like right now, and it looks really good. It looks quite decent, and I'm happy with the outcome because you sort of sandwich the collar in between. You don't see any raw edges and you don't see any seams. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is to work on the sleeves. I've already cut out my sleeves, and I'm going to join the side seams from one end to the other on my machine. So using a normal straight stitch, I'm going to join those side seams of the sleeves and overlock it afterwards. So I just did this for both sleeves, so when it's time to fix it into the actual garment, I know I have both sleeves ready. So I've pinned the sleeves into the armhole of the garments. You know how easing works. It's quite weird and difficult, but you just slowly and carefully pin it in such a way that when it's time to sew all the way around, you kind of know when to stretch the sleeve to fit the armhole. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this on my domestic machine, carefully easing the sleeve into the armhole, stretching it at critical points. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead and work on the hem. And I'm going to sew 3 centimeters from the hem, joining the facing to the actual garment. So I'm going to stop sewing at the point where the facing ends and then turn it inside out. So when that is done, you have like a nice finished hem, and it automatically folds in the rest of the hem of the dress. Like, it's just literally magic. So this is what the dress looks like right now. I gave it a little press so it looks, you know, nicely done and relaxed. I have pressed the hem of the front as well, and I overlocked the inside bit as well so it looks nice and neat. So I'm going to sew from the end of that facing, which we did earlier on, to the other side along the hem. So I folded it in 3 centimeters, pressed it, and I'm just sewing it down so it doesn't fold out while you have the dress on. As for the sleeves, I just turned it up and kept it like really casual and cool. The next thing we're going to do is to make the buttonholes. I've already gone ahead and I've marked them because I just transferred the points on the pattern onto the front of the dress, and I've marked where I want my buttons to be. And the thing with buttonholes is you want to make the buttonhole 1 cm wider than the actual button, so the button has a way to go in and out of the hole, because if it's the same like sort of dimension, the button won't really be able to leave the buttonhole. So this is the first time I'm actually making buttonholes in my sewing machine, and I was really scared, but I made sure I tested it out before doing it on the actual garment, and it's quite easy and simple to do. I was really surprised. So I'm going to go ahead and create the 4 buttonholes on the dress. So once those 4 holes are done, they're not perfect, but at least they kind of work on the dress. I'm going to go ahead and cut using my baby scissors. I'm cutting in between the buttonholes to create the gap for the button to go in and out. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to quickly stitch on my buttons and finish off the dress. After you're done stitching on the button, the dress is basically done, and this is what it looks like. It came out quite cool, and an additional thing I did was to add shoulder pads, so it really has that 70s padded shoulder effect. To add shoulder pads is quite easy. All you do is stitch on the shoulder pads along the head of the sleeve to give it a more structured look. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial. If you have any questions, suggestions or ideas, please ask them down below. And until my next one, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.